A very good afternoon, and thanks for clicking on to the Tuesday edition of Vogan's European Outlook. Before we get into the video, be sure to like, share, and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already done so. I greatly appreciate everybody's support, view, comment. I love to hear whereabouts you're watching the videos from, whether it's on your tablet, mobile, TV. I love to hear how everybody is, both consuming and enjoying the content. Lots of things to cover in today's video. We will touch on a little bit about the winter stuff as well in today's video because I felt as if I just kind of, as per usual, ran out of time. So we will have a little bit more of a glance at both the El Nino and the Indian Ocean Dipole, two pretty key drivers with regards to the winter season is, and we are going to look at a lot more detail with regards to the solar cycle and global sea surface temperatures, quasi-biennial oscillation. We've got so many things to cover. We will continue to look at that, and we will start to ramp up the winter chat as we go into the month of September. So plenty of reason to stick around here on markhoganweather.com and YouTube. Also check out markhoganweather.com itself. I will have the September outlook within the next 48 hours. We'll be scoring the summer forecast 2023. It looks as if it was, if I say so myself, one of the best, most accurate summer forecasts I've done. Have been producing summer forecasts since 2010. So, 13 years it has been going on. And the channel itself here on YouTube continues to grow exponentially as well. Hurricanes are becoming a big factor. It looks as if we are going to see a significant pattern change as we step into the month of September. And lo and behold, is it a case of the weather actually knows when the school holidays are on? When the schools are in, the weather's nice, it's calm, it's sunny like we've seen back in June. Then the schools break off, the weather goes downhill, and now that the schools are about to begin again, it looks as if the weather is about to go back to a more persistent, settled spell with something we have not seen for a very long time. It's been many, many weeks since high pressure has been, dominant. And by dominant, I mean not just a 24 or 48-hour thing, but actually, several days, possibly into a 2-week time frame of high pressure building. We'll look at why the pattern is changing in just a second. These are the 850 temperatures off the GFS ensemble for London. You can see here we've got below average, goes marginally above average for a period of time, the red line being the average, of course. And of course, this is the 5,000 foot level temperature expected by the model. The white line is the ensemble mean, so you've got that kind of general consensus in the models indicating that we go below to above, slightly back to below, and then we start to see a gradual climb as high pressure becomes more established. We're going to see the 850s become slightly warmer than average right the way through, it looks like, towards the middle portion of September here. So it may mean business with regards to that here. The El Nino is an interesting one. Now, this is probably not overly clear, and I do apologize for that. But this is Nino region 1.2, and that basically is the water temperatures right up against the coast of South America here. So if we look at the 2-minute, I'll get there. Sea surface temperatures. Sea surface temperatures, you can see here that the El Nino in place at the moment here. So it's a very moderate El Nino in region 1.2. But you notice here that we do have a situation where this is the 7-day change, by the way, in the sea surface temperatures, and you can see here generally it's actually cooled compared to the average here over the last 7 days. So globally, it looks as if there's been some very decent, cooling rather than warming. Now, the warming that we are seeing, incidentally, is actually off the UK and Ireland here. Notice so we've got a little bit more warming taking place here. We've got an area of cooling right around the Azores, and then down towards the tropical Atlantic here, we've got some gradual warming. We've got a little bit of cooling over the Gulf of Mexico, which is quite interesting. We'll talk about that in just a second here. We've got cooling off the Baja. That is thanks to the passage of Hurricane Hillary. The Pacific has seen some fairly decent cooling taking place. Indian Ocean is quite interesting. We'll look at the IOD in just a second here. But this is the current sea surface temperatures according to the CDAS data of tropical tidbits. And you can see here that there is very little in the way of increased warming in that region of 1.2, the Nino region. So you can see here that we did see a gradual warming taking place June into the month of July. Then we're seeing a bit of a drop off again, but these water temperatures are +3 Celsius, which is borderline moderate to strong El Nino category here. But notice we've seen a bit of a drop off in the temperature and then a slight increase right at the very end here. And what that's showing is that the El Nino is kind of struggling to strengthen further. And you can see that in the 7-day change here, there is very little difference in terms of the warming up against the South American coast, just a fraction of a warming taking place. And there is some confliction here, some of that coupling between ocean and atmosphere. The Indian Ocean dipole is now into positive territory, and we will have a look at that. So this is a tweet here by a chap, a meteorologist in Australia, Ben Domincio, I think it is. He says that the Indian Ocean is now in a clear positive IOD pattern with abnormally warm waters in the west versus unusually cool waters in the east. So of course that increases drought and increases temperature both in Australia and also over Indonesia. What we have is we have the warming taking place over the western side of the Indian Ocean, and we increase rainfall areas of low pressure over the far west into eastern portions of Africa. So, Somalia, Ethiopia, we increase the rainfall in the eastern portion of Africa, decrease the rainfall compared to average over Indonesia. So drought and increased temperatures for Indonesia and indeed much of Australia. You can see here, which is interesting, is that the IOD is actually the most positive since 2019. Now, 2019, by the way, is an interesting one. So this is the winter chart we're talking about. It was very strong. In fact, it was record-breaking positive with the warm water in the west, cool water in the east. And it is possibly believed that that increased the strength of the jet stream over the North Atlantic, produced a very cool, or sorry, not cool, very, very mild and wet winter in 2019-2020. Now, remember that we had a very powerful polar vortex, so increased the strength of the PV, we increased the strength of the jet stream, and we had one system after another, particularly in the month of February was the wettest on record for the UK. And it's believed that there is a correlation between that very strong positive IOD and the pattern across the Atlantic and Europe and even North America as well. Now, if we can get the IOD to weaken before we reach the winter season, and we can correlate with a weakening of the El Nino in region 1.2. So this is up against the Pacific coast of South America. If we can shift that warm pool out towards the central portion of the Pacific Ocean in a moderate state as we push from autumn into winter season, that would correlate to an increased chance of more negative NAO, so blocking over the North Atlantic and Greenland here, but a strong IOD, Indian Ocean dipole, being in the positive phase, and the warmest waters in the Pacific up against the South American coast, I believe we would increase the strength of the jet stream over the North Atlantic and increase the chance of a milder and wetter winter. These are two very important factors. Also, the solar cycle, we are approaching a maximum. It looks as if we may have seen a maximum earlier in the summer season. If you haven't already done so, be sure to check out GAVSWEATHERVIDS. He does touch on this. I believe it was a Sunday roundup where he made mention of this. So be sure to check that out. I will leave a link in the description below the Gav's channel. Some terrific content there. But I believe we have to see a weakening of the warmth against South America. We have to see the positive IOD weaken as we move towards the late autumn and early winter season. If we don't, I would be leaning more and more towards a milder, possibly wetter winter for Northwest Europe here. So that's the latest ideas I've got with regards to the winter season. And if you are enjoying the chat about winter, be sure to let me know in the comments section below if you want me to keep talking about winter. It's a long way off, but these are the ideas I have to now start to build. I'm not a big believer in that, Siberian snow cover during the month of October and the relationship to a negative Arctic oscillation, North Atlantic oscillation. I'm not necessarily buying into that one. I haven't seen enough to convince me that there is a direct linkage between the Siberian snow cover, either stronger or weaker in terms of the coverage of snow, particularly during the month of October. I'm not convinced of that one. But this is the Northern Hemisphere view for September of the CFSV2. We've got a fairly positive NAO with the negative over Greenland, positive just to the west of the UK and Ireland. We could see something a little bit more northwesterly in September. This is the month of October, and it's interesting to see, again, negative over the North Atlantic and Greenland, positive further towards the UK and Ireland. That would indicate a fairly mild October here. November, you can still see here that positive, but you notice that it's kind of starting to shift up towards Scandinavia, which could be an interesting one in the month of December. Now, remember also that the late season Atlantic tropical activity can also have an impact. We've seen that correlation last autumn and in the winter season. Of course, we've had probably the most negative North Atlantic oscillation summer since 2009, which is an interesting one. Remember, 2009 was also a Madoki El Nino. That was where the warmest waters were over the Central Pacific. So we need to watch this space over the next couple of months. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens with regards to that here. But you can see here that we've got quite a lot of positive for the month of December. January, we'll have that positive over the UK. But then we start to see a shift in the month of February. And El Nino winters can sometimes be backloaded in terms of a colder pattern. The colder second half to winter season can be quite an obvious one during El Nino winters. And look at this here for the month of March and even April. Quite a negative NAO signal there. Speaking of the Arctic oscillation, going from negative to positive, so that means lower pressure over the Arctic region. The NAO, which has been predominantly negative since the beginning of July, it is going positive as well. And it's interesting when we correlate with the tropics here. Idalia, I couldn't for the life of me think of the name of that hurricane yesterday. That looks as if it's going into the northwest of Florida as a major hurricane. So we need to keep an eye on this over the next couple of days here. But it looks as if it's going right into the northwest corner of Florida. And it looks as if, it could be a problem for Tampa, driving a storm surge up Tampa Bay. That could be a major situation for that region of Florida here. So we need to keep an eye on that. Franklin, however, major hurricane, is going into the North Atlantic. And that is important, folks, because what we are going to start to see is these systems moving northwards here. But the Franklin is the big one, because what happens is we've got that cool northwesterly airflow at the moment. Plenty of sunshine and showers across the UK. We're going to see that over the next few days. But watch what happens in particular. So this is off the 500 millibar. This is off the GFS run of Tropical Tidbits. You notice here the trough moving east. It becomes Franklin becomes absorbed in that trough. We've got that ridge of high pressure over Newfoundland here. That is going to get pumped as the negative becomes deeper. It initially downstream actually deepens the trough over the UK and Ireland here. So we're going to maintain this trophy situation. But watch what happens. The area of high pressure strengthens. It kind of topples in over the top of the UK, forces that trough south of the UK, and then it looks as if, according to this run of the GFS, we'll see the heights rise significantly from north to south over the UK, and that looks as if that is going to become a lock as we move into the end of week 1 of September and beyond. Look at this here, how much the heights are rising over the UK and Ireland. And folks, that is a direct consequence of Franklin becoming absorbed in the North Atlantic, strengthening the heights downstream, and therefore eventually that high kind of topples in over the UK and Ireland. So a big change coming. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you again tomorrow.